welcome to Living La Vita Loca, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Fazz.
And I'm His Royal Richness.
Oh, it was Sir Richness.
I don't care.
Oh, okay.
I changed it.
That would be, I guess, a remark from somebody that was royal. They could do whatever the fuck they want.
Exactly.
I'd love to be in a position of
royal
power.
Prerogative.
Your hair's got a nice flick going through it right there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I grew it myself.
It looks like you've had a crown on, and the bits from the side
just
have
sort
come
of
out.
flicking out. Yeah. I definitely have not been wearing a crown.
Yeah.
Honest.
Yeah.
Definitely haven't made myself a crown.
In the 7 minutes between recording of podcasts.
I work fast. I have people for that.
I was going to say that we've just gone from heavy hair conversation to more heavy hair conversation. So, welcome to the Haircast. No?
Imagine if your audience now grows. You're like, right, we're going to have to keep the hair talking.
Yeah, the hair chat.
I thought that was like a joke. The growing.
Oh,
right, okay.
That would have been a good joke. Oh well.
Anywho,
I missed a chance for a joke in the last.
Did you? Do you want to do it now? You're welcome to do it now.
Well, it was when you were talking about the game, sometimes being in on just beaches and tunnels.
Yep.
And I was going to say, was it a bit one-dimensional when you're in the tunnels? And I thought it was going to be funny, but not now.
No.
I don't get it.
Well, because the tunnel, it's only...
Yeah.
What? I mean, it's made me laugh. I don't know why, but that's fine. That's okay. I'm not that clever, Aaron. I'm sorry. Right. Okay. Speaking of hair growth, putting hair on your chest, would be something. So
start with one that's going to put hair on one's chest.
I think so. But before we start talking about the beers we're about to drink, then, so I know we touched on it a little bit last time. What I know, obviously, you said your friend James, who we know well, got you into drinking, I guess, beer or IPAs and things. What changed your track on going from something like wine into drinking beers? And
well, it was sort of a conscious decision, really, because I saw all the beer around. It was about the time when the UK was starting to come into a real kind of like craft beer kind of, and it was a bit like my wine thing. So the wine thing came from food. I was like, I don't like wine, but I like food. I was like, I need to like wine because, people have wine and food together, don't they? So I did a similar thing with beer. I was like, I need to like beer. And I didn't like any beer, but mainly because I just had, lager, bad lager. Because my dad, tends to drink kind of lagers.
Bad lager.
Yeah,
bad lager, Dad.
Yeah, and so, when I was a bit young, not that he was feeding me all the time, obviously, but like, when I'd ever...
It's very, very concerning.
When I'd ever tasted lager, I'd been like, I don't like that. Because I've been, so I was like to James, I was like, right, I need to like beer. And I was like, you've got a year to let me get me liking beer.
You put a time limit on it?
Yeah, I was like, that's what, and it was like, 2 outings and I was in. I was all in.
You've got a year, 6 minutes later.
So he took me to a beer festival in I want to say, not Saltaire, somewhere like that, somewhere that's not Saltaire. Or maybe it is Saltaire, because there's two
There's Salt, and then there's Saltaire Brewery. Saltaire have just had their beer festival. The same, weirdly, they had the same weekend as the Leeds International Beer Festival, and a chap I spoke to at Springwell went. So Springwell is North Brewing's, I guess, brewing / bar / event zone, and I went there the other week, last week, and that was excellent. Went for the beer festival there. That was really good. And a chap that was there in the group we were with, he said he went to both Leeds International Beer Festival and Saltaire Beer Festival, and he said he preferred the Saltaire Beer Festival.
Oh, really?
So he definitely recommended going sometime. So maybe you have been, and maybe that's why you enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big tent when I first went with James, and what happened basically was he put me on to some dark beers. That was my route in, was dark beer.
Interesting.
And I was like, because obviously they've got like a bit more flavour to them not necessarily more flavour, but they've got, they're easy to put a flavour into, aren't they?
Yeah.
And so I tried, a few kind of dark beers, and I was like, oh, actually, maybe I quite like these. And then I remember he took me to the Brewdog Shuffle Dog in town, and I got kind of a flight. And I started doing that thing where actually compare them rather than just drinking one. You compare them and you think, actually, these have got really different flavours.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of where it then grew from. I was like, oh, they're not all the same. They're not all kind of got this nasty aftertaste that cheap lager has. Because I still don't like that, actually. Like, when I tried cheap lager, I'm like, oh, no, it's got that nasty lager in it. And from there, it bloomed into my now love of beer and I'm quite proud of my proud, is that the word to use?
I think you should be,
why not?
1,000 different beers on Untapped.
And that's just happened recently, hasn't it? You've just got to 1,000 recently.
Yeah, quite recently.
How long has that taken you to put together then?
So,
6 minutes
my
ago.
journey on Untapped has been, hang on, let's see this. I joined in 2016, so it's been about 7 years.
So, yes, that's...
Sounds like a cult. Especially when you were like at the start when you said I was surrounded by beers, all these beers around you. I was like, it felt very Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory, except you were in a brewery.
So I think should we go with a big hitter?
Well, that's you're desperate to drink those beers, aren't you? I just want to ask a couple more questions before I got drunk.
Oh, right, sorry.
It's just like the Untapped app.
Yeah.
1,000 beers on there. So what do you do on that? Do you just record the beers that you've? I mean, I'm going to be honest. I know the answer to this question, but I'm asking for the listener, professional.
So the thing is, it's a great app because it's kind of a bit of a kind of like you can sort of talk to your friends on there as well. It's got a bit of a social media aspect. So there's a couple of friends who maybe Matt, for example, who lives in Australia. I occasionally see a beer or something he's been drinking, and I just comment, notice you've been in. It's a way of
Aaron is typing on the desk.
On
Just
the
for
desk,
the podcast, just if you heard that.
But it's reviewing beers, and the reason I do it is the same thing as my lists. Like my memory's not great, and if I
wonder why 1,000 beers.
and if I just started doing it because I was like, I want to be able to remember what beers I've had, and if I come across one, I'm like, oh, I've had that before. Like, what did I think of it, kind of thing. And so that's why I started reviewing on them. And it's a nice app to use. It's dead easy to use. You can search by kind of location and it brings up the beers sometimes that are actually in that venue, and you can just select which one, or you can scan the barcode or whatever, put a review in, see if your friends have drunk the same beer. But yeah, it's just a sort of memory thing for me, really, remembering like what I've had and what I've liked and what I've not liked and all that.
So, on that note, then you wanted to crack out one of the beers that one of your best beers.
Yeah,
that you've
so
had
a 4.75er.
Okay.
So
and it's out of 5.
It's out of 5.
Yeah.
So I've got 1.5 listed on my ratings, and then the rest.
Can you tell us what the 5 is? I mean, I know we're not going to have a little dabble of it tonight, but can you tell us what the 5 is?
Not because the 5.
The listener.
The 5 was, let me just do
a limited
sorting your rating high. So not so much. It was just a kind of a brewery. Is it Polish?
I tried to look for this one and I couldn't find it.
Yeah,
we were trying to look for the best beers, but I'm going to be on Aaron's list, but I found it quite difficult to find more than 2 or 3 of them that you could actually buy in a shop.
So the best one ever was actually during the lockdown, and we did a kind of online beer tasting with, I don't think it was with Untapped. It was, I can't remember who it was with. Oh, it was with the people who send out beers to your beer.
Oh yeah, Beer 52 or whatever they are,
something
and
like that.
Yeah.
So they did this online beer tasting, and they sent you a box of beers. It was quite fun, especially for the lockdown when you couldn't do very much.
Yeah.
And they went to the breweries and they kind of spoke to the brewers online on the video chat.
Okay, yeah.
And then you were tasting the beer and they gave you a few notes.
Cool.
It was great fun.
Cool.
But by the time I drank this one, which was a Baltic Porter Tonka Vanilla Chocolate Nitro.
One of them.
Yeah,
That's
one of
wonderful.
them. 9.1%, so not quite kind of real top end, but heavy medium.
Yeah.
Let's call it.
Heavy metal, more like.
You know,
Tonka being Tonka car, like as in there's actual metal in that drink.
I mean, I was probably a few beers in by this point of reviewing this one, so
Ooh, okay.
that does. But I remember thinking at the time, no, this is the 5. This is it. This is 5. And James berating me because he always berates me for rating the beers too high. He was like, "No, you can't do that. Like, I'm going to go when I die. Something I'm going to do on my deathbed is go back through and decide what the 5 was." I was like, no. No. If it's a 5,
it warrants it.
You know when it's a 5, right? Yeah. So it was great. I mean, I've never eaten a tonka bean.
She's the one. She's the one.
I've never eaten a tonka bean, but it was just so much, and then more.
Yeah,
flavour.
That's great. Strength. I mean, I'm really glad that you felt like strengthening conviction that you could do that, because sometimes, you know, and we probably do that on this podcast when we're rating games and things. Do you have the strength of conviction to go to the 10, you know, and say, is this the one? I mean, I dabbled with it sort of in Super Mario World recently, and it was like, and then I found a fault, fucking haunted houses. But like, you know, like, yeah, it's good that you could go there. So, you know, I'm glad you went to the max.
I'm dabbling with something for a future episode that I'm starting to think is going to get up.
Are you?
Up to some of the loftier heights.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if it's going to be all the way there, but yeah. So I'm taking heart from the fact that someone has looked at it and gone, you know what, this is a 5 out of 5, and I know it when I see it.
We should probably point out, actually, we are still, I said at the start, a gaming podcast, but we do dabble a lot in
rate
beer.
Everything.
Yeah, we do.
It's
concerning, isn't it? I can't help
it. It really is.
I love giving shit a number, like as in that no one else cares about. Like as in,
we should just get arbitrary number T-shirts printed up.
That's
how the merch starts.
That'd be great. Yeah, it's just a T-shirt that has the number like
arbitrary
6 on
number.
It. It's like 6 out of 10. But yeah, I think it's really important to point out that we always have done in all our episodes, but if people haven't gone back to back catalogues and things, you know, we as much as Aaron probably does, I mean, maybe not as much, and so we don't collect on an app, but we absolutely love drinking beer and tasting different beers. And, you know, one of the best ones I've had recently was the one that he got from Brid. You know, that is not from Brid.
Oh, the one from Bribra.
Yeah, Bribra, yeah, exactly. And it was just like, you know, and it loved that it didn't have anything written on the bottle pretty much. It was just like, this is the title of the beer, this is how much alcohol percentage it was. It was fantastic. And, you know, we can share those moments together. And I really like that as our friendship group. That is something that we've always done, certainly in the most recent years. You know, being able to sit down and have beers together and really enjoy it. And one of my best favourite moments, I guess, that I, you know, is it of my life? It sounds like really grandeur, and especially when I tell you what it was. But you know, that the day that we sat in your back garden, which was the very first time we could drink after the first lockdown from COVID,
That's nice.
And it was Easter, and it was really weird. And actually, in that week that. Speaking of Springwell Beer Festival, I went to that week as well and had a really good night there. But it was freezing cold there, and that was like the Saturday night. But on the Wednesday afternoon, we'd been in your garden, and it was baking hot, and it was like it'd been like a heat wave during the first lockdown of COVID, and we were sat, and it was in the middle of April. It was like 25 degrees, and we were just sat drinking beers, and there was just 4 of us, wasn't there? It was me, you, James, and Sean, and you made some amazing food, and I've never just enjoyed life as much in that moment, because you hadn't been able to do that for, like, you know, 3 or 4 months, and the food was but I don't want to be like, oh, it made it taste better or feel better or anything like that. I mean, it did feel like a really great moment, but also on top of that, I don't want to take away from how good you made that food and how great those beers were as well.
Yeah,
and there was a Daya beer, wasn't there? Is it called Daya?
We were just like, oh,
it was like 13%, and it was so dank and tasty. And I was like, I'm having the best time, and all I'm doing is just being around my friend's house, enjoying really good food and beer. And I think sometimes there's something to be said for that, and I guess that's probably why, maybe, certainly personally for me, that, you know, another kinship thing that we talk about all the time on the podcast about what we share as friends, and why we like to have people like Aaron on as well. One of my best friends is like, that we can talk about things that we really enjoy this. So, and it's great to get that out there. Even if 3 people listen to this, 5 people, 30 people, it's nice to celebrate that, and hopefully people get that feeling as well.
And talking about and bringing nice things, what am I holding?
So you are
a chalice of glory.
Recently come back to a shout out to the Woodside Micropub.
Actually, it's a great shout, because we've not talked about them before on the pod.
Yeah, so lovely little pub in Horsforth that does some great, and it was originally always Belgian beers. They've just brought this back in. It is Saint Fouillon. As we had the guy, they did a little tasting with a guy from the brewery actually came and was
did they? Wow.
very keen on how it's pronounced. Anyway, so this is the St. Foyon Quad, which is obviously you've got a blonde and you've got a brune, and then you've got various things like that, and you've got a double, and then this is have you got a double?
You've definitely got a triple.
Blonde, brune, you've got a triple, and then you've got a quad. I guess. So it's quite dark. And it is 11% proof.
Nice.
And it's one of my 4.75s. I can't remember the last time I had it, so I don't know if I was,
Thank you for bringing it.
Give you a bottle opener. You want to do the honours?
This is great.
Crack it open.
By the way.
Millennium Falcon bottle opener.
Yeah.
With built-in magnets.
Built-in magnets.
No less.
Got it on the Kessel Run.
And so this is going to be rich, I imagine.
That's rich.
Not as rich as you.
It's
so rich that's umami.
It's not,
but it will have umami in it.
We really missed that name out on the wrestling podcast episode, didn't we? It's Royal Richness.
I have many names.
Oh God! Oh no, God! You're not. That's off the Mighty Boosh, isn't it?
Probably.
I have many names.
It's not the crack fox.
Some call me. I can't remember what all the names are, so this is disappointing.
I haven't watched Mighty Boosh in ages, but it does remind me of you whenever I do sort of think about it. Like, I know you're a massive Boosh guy, weren't you? So
yeah, I was. Yeah,
another big recommendation, Mighty Boosh, for anyone that hasn't seen that.
Yeah, if you like.
Very kooky, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, abstract humour.
If you like to be slightly weirded out, it's a great programme to watch.
There's something to be said for a good weird out, isn't there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you want to watch green men in skirts exposing themselves, producing light, and if you want to watch a man with a polo hat singing about eels
up inside you,
then that's your thing.
There is something spectacular about having weird humour, but then kind of going through the Aaron filter, like coming out the other end. Are you saying
it gets weirder or straighter, the humour?
I think, how sometimes people will say, "Oh, well, such and such didn't quite live up to my expectations," or the version that was in my head, because you have the version that's in your head of the weird humour, and then you've got the version that Aaron's telling you of the weird humour, and then the two just kind of combine in such a lovely way.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah. Well done, you.
Yeah, well done, Aaron. Good work.
I don't know how I do that, but
it's a gift. It's a gift.
It is a gift.
So this is the quad.
I've already had a little nibble, and I feel wonderful.
It's just it's.
I really like so I like to try and compare it to something you can get quite commercially, and I think about Morrison's, the retailer that I work for, and we sell, I think, the only Belgian beers that kind of going around is like Leffe and Duvel.
I think Leffe's alright.
But what I wanted to say was that I really like those as a commercial sort of Belgian beer, and the brown Leffe is lovely, and this feels like an extravagant Leffe. It feels like the champagne of Leffe, which is good by me.
The thing about this is, and I'm thinking, I was thinking I was bringing it on. I was like, am I gonna look back and think, oh, I over-egged it? With
Is it 7.5?
And I don't. I think I'm happy with where I was at, because it's just so rounded. There's so much about it.
Yeah.
You know, you take the first sip and then it's a story in your mouth.
That
I mean, rounded is a good way.
That's a good. I like the story in your mouth situation. Like,
you know, it starts with, you know, you obviously start with the aromas in your nose.
The aromas in your nose. That's where they go.
That is where
Get them in your nose. Get them in you.
And it's, you know, just malty, and then you know, you sip and it's kind of sweet up front, isn't it?
Like Harry Kane.
But it's smooth. And then you get, oh, what's this I'm getting in my mouth? You know, you get all these different. You get just things rolling in, and you're like, how the flavour's still.
I love that so much.
I'm struggling more and more to divorce you from the Mighty Boosh now. Oh, what's that in my mouth?
Oh, what's that? Where's that aroma going? Up my nose. We love you so much. That's great. It is. That is very good. Saint Fillon. Trying to not say it wrong, but very much so. So that's a high-end recommendation then from Aaron, and certainly from myself as well. I'm enjoying that. Rips, is that your...
Yeah, like, I was just thinking, because I was in Belgium earlier this year, and like we, long story short, because of train strikes, and like we were planning on going around a little bit, but we ended up staying there longer than we thought we would.
Stuck in the land of beer.
Yeah, beer and chips, and who knew it was a great holiday. But yeah, I didn't come across this, and that it wasn't for lack of trying, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, like well-rounded, sort of like it's not exactly one note, is it? And you wouldn't drink that fast.
No.
And you saying about earlier on about your kind of journey towards being a quote unquote beer drinker, like
in sobriety.
Yeah, like it's a long way removed from like when I was at uni and you buy like the cheapest pint you can and drink it as fast as possible, and it's you don't notice it. Like that is almost like you would want to drink that like you would drink a whiskey or something like that. You nurse it, don't you? But
the thing about the percentage, the thing about a good strong beer, because you've got a lot of beers that are strong, but the thing about a good strong beer is you don't necessarily notice strength.
Yeah, it doesn't hit you in the face.
It's not like, this tastes of alcohol. Yeah. It just tastes of flavour, which is a stupid thing to say.
Tastes of flavour in your mouth.
Yeah. But
4.75.
You get a little bit of a kick of alcohol, but not in a kind of really, this is unpleasant.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like it burns or anything.
No, and it's smooth. It's just really, even the bubbles look smooth. You can tell when you look. It's a bit like coffee.
Yeah.
When you look at it and you look at the bubbles and you think they are some
the
quality.
Soothing tones of Aaron on this podcast.
Yeah, Aaron's beer appreciation is genuinely relaxing to listen to.
It's great. So let's not overindulge too much then, because how many beers have you got to try?
There's 5 in my bag, but I don't have to. We'll have to do all this, but we'll try.
Alcoholic.
We'll try. I'm not working tomorrow.
I also am, and it's kind of like my second day of my new job, of which is the first day with my line manager. Like, so.
Yeah, but remember, you're not drinking a whole beer, are you? You're only drinking.
I've just drank some of 3 different Polish ones. Now this one,
3 and 4%.
I guess you're right. I mean, I want to drink the beers, so you're right. No, I was just saying, I didn't want to indulge just because I guess I wanted to ask Rich a little bit about his beer drinking history, maybe. In terms of what kind of makes you sort of enjoy this kind of stuff now, rather than the bad lager that Aaron's dad used to spill on him and down the stairs, apparently.
Sorry, Dad.
So when I was at uni, like I would quite often, like I had very little like discipline when it came to drinking, and
I can relate to that.
Well, up to including there was one time where we were meant to... Oh, in fact, Mum and Dad don't know the entirety of this story, I don't think. So, surprise! So, it was...
don't look under your bed.
One evening, we were meant to... Like, me and a few friends were meant to be going out somewhere. And I can't remember exactly why, but the plans fell through. So, we went back. And, like, we had a couple of bottles of, like... I don't know... Not even Gordon's gin. Some random gin. And for some weird reason, I thought it was a good idea to just have it from a mug.
Yeah.
Like, just neat gin from a mug. And I was like, rather than going to the kitchen and coming back and getting a different drink each time, I'll just sit here and unearth this. And
I'd say it's quite classy for a university, maybe, actually, a mug.
Well, yeah.
Who's got a mug?
Seemed like it at the time.
Drink out an old pot noodle packet and, then we're talking.
Fast forward a couple of hours and I'm trying to beat the alcohol out of my head with a toilet system while Josh is holding my hair back. And then the next day my parents turned up because it was my birthday and they bought me a bass amp. So, sitting there trying to appreciate that was entertaining. Yeah. And then we went to KFC and Dad drove over all of the speed bumps in Egham. So I didn't drink much after that.
There's never been a better podcast title of an episode ever. Dad drove over all the speed bumps in Egham. So I was teetotal for about 18 months. Oh, really? Shit, okay. I didn't see this story taking that kind of twist.
I went completely the other way. And I was like, you know what? Like, until I can friggin' learn some discipline, like, I'm not having any of it.
You're so sensible, Royal Rich. Like, you really are. Like,
thank you.
And that's an actual genuine compliment. Like, people use sensibility as like, oh, it's sensible, it's boring as fuck. Actually, it's a very much a good, aspect of you. That is in, whenever you speak upon anything in the podcast, I listen to you. And maybe you should listen to this. This
story has further turns yet. So there was an episode of South Park, of all fucking things, would you believe it, where Stan's dad goes teetotal, and then the whole episode basically boils down to the fact that if you have one extreme then the other, then you haven't necessarily learned anything. You haven't learned the middle ground. You haven't learned the control and the discipline. And that's where it stems from. That's where it lies. I was like, you know what? Actually, like, it's dumb because it's coming from South Park, but also I kind of get where it's coming from. Like, that, I'm on board with that point. And I thought, you know what? Like, okay, yeah, I can be sensible with this. And so, started drinking again, but with a view to trying to appreciate it a bit more. And I mean, I guess, people say about like eating mindfully and stuff like that. That was kind of how I was trying to approach it. And so very quickly I decided off the back of that, kind of like Aaron was saying, that I didn't like the kind of lagers that you would easily get at the time if you were in a pub.
The mugs of gin that you just easily get.
Certainly didn't like the mugs of gin. I've barely drunk gin since. So I started drinking cider.
Okay. I did cider before beer as well.
And I think, like...
I think cider's sometimes a way in, isn't it?
Well, I've spoken to quite a few people that, have started drinking cider and then they appreciate the fact that, there are different types that can taste a bit different and you can notice it. And then I think, that kind of coincided with that, like, again, like Aaron was saying, like the kind of rise of, like, craft beers and the fact that you could get a greater range of drinks doing different things more easily. And then it was like, well, I don't need to drink the really, really fizzy, like, piss-Wasser kind of lagers. I can get, like, a more still ale. I can get one that will, like, during lockdowns and stuff like that, my kind of personal discovery were the sort of darker stouts and the kind of coffee, chocolatey kind of overtones and stuff like that. I started to, over, a long time, develop a bit more of an appreciation for... If someone puts a drink in front of me, it's not down the hatch. It's, take a minute with it. And like with whiskies and stuff like that, I try to, drink it in a way that it's like just considering.
Oh, that Lafrague that you gave us a few weeks back was so delicious. Well, that was so nice.
The thing though, because it's like, it's that kind of...
That was a savouring thing. That's, you wanted to spend time with that. You didn't
exactly. And like, it sounds ridiculous, but you pop some music on and you just have a drink and just sit there and just let it wash over you and all that kind of stuff. And or like we were saying, in the other episode about someone, putting a lot of effort into making a drink, even if you don't like it or whatever. And you know, someone's made all this stuff. You know, it's a craft. You know, clues in the name with a lot of it. Least I can do is try and appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think.
Have you ever tried to make your own beer? Either of you?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah. I tried as well, but mine was naff. So. It's a Victorian bitter.
Mine wasn't. Well, I didn't think it was awful. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
Really. I'd like to try it again, but it's just one of those things that, you know, time.
Yeah.
Effort. It's one of my notes actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, over there.
No.
Oh, sorry. Kicking tables.
Yeah, what does it say? What does it say? Where was it? It was down here somewhere.
Make beer, drink beer.
Beer drinking, beer making. No, it's gone. It's gone. Oh, beer brewing. Here we are.
Yeah.
Beer brewing. What's it say on the notes? Oh, it's just got, okay, yeah, Will's Old English Ale. This is what I brewed, apparently.
That's the problem, though, isn't it? Like, I think that whenever you get a brewing pack, it usually ends up being a 4% bitter.
Well, you see,
shite.
Adjusted water. I adjusted it because I was like, yeah, this is the first time I've ever tried to brew beer.
I'll change it straight away. Yeah.
I'll ignore what it says.
I'll do what I want. Yeah. What's new?
Added honey and a small amount of sucrose. And so ended up being 7.1%.
Well, there we go.
It was all right.
Winnie the Pooh would be happy.
I drank some of it and then not all of it because I just got a bit bored of it, I think. But
yeah, you end up brewing like a 40-pint batch, and you're like, after about 3 pints, you're like, anyone else want this terrible thing I've just brewed at home? No. Cool. Right, okay. Thank you for that. Thanks for sharing this, guys.
It's all right.
So... we're going to have another little crack of a beer.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to rush this one out of town. I mean, is there any more? No, that's good. That's gone. Yeah, no.
So, I mean, I think let's do this. Right?
Okay.
Let's do this. Right.
That's
so
a premium looking one.
Well,
is it Carling?
No, it's not. You see, so
I got given a 4-pack of Carling as I left my previous job by the guy in the warehouse.
Aww.
Absolutely lovely chap. He was like, "Here's a 4-pack." I'm like, "Okay, cheers." Little Gary.
What I thought I'd do is a couple of these beers. I thought I'd challenge myself a bit. You know, it's a bit like I don't usually. This is not something I'd pick normally.
Oh right, okay. This could go wrong.
Well, but that's fine. If I'm right, that's fine.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know I don't sound like it, but I am excited.
So I thought. Right.
Yeah.
Let's see what this.
You're gonna have a great time.
Hello. I just thought, right, I wouldn't normally go Brewdog at all because I just they're fine.
Okay. That's fine. I just think it's a bit harsh.
Almost sounded genuinely there.
I just think it's a bit harsh. We had Arcade Made on the podcast recently, and it was good and well named. And I get it because Brewdog has become the popular, easy thing to get in the supermarket situation. But I still think they taste pretty good. I don't mean to
try. Yeah, and they do. I think they do. And they're sort of like, for me, they're like the saviour in the bad pub.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah.
At least there's a Brewdog. I'll have that. So I think there's a space for Brewdog.
I think the draft Brewdog.
They don't need me to tell. They've done pretty well, haven't they?
They've made more beer than you.
Yeah, they've made more beer than me. But so I normally wouldn't. But so this is it's called Blackheart. It's a draft stout, described as, although obviously it's in a can. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe they're like, we're going to make a Guinness, but we're going to make our own.
That's
Guinness.
exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So at the moment, in all the shops, all the marketing says, not. Basically,
like Guinness,
it basically says the alternative. Effectively, that is in so, and you can actively buy 4 packs, 8 packs. They're on special offer at the moment in a lot of shops, like 3 for $21. Like, I have tried this when I was on holiday about 2 months ago, and it is, so, to put you guys in the mindset of this, it is very much like Guinness, but I do think it's darker, almost in a way, like, I don't know how, and I have a sneaking suspicion that I've got a preference for this over Guinness, even though I quite like a Guinness.
What percentage is Guinness, do we know?
I think it's about 5, is it?
So this is 4.1.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Guinness for me is people always go about Guinness, fill you up like a meal. I actually find Guinness, when I've had it, quite light. But I think that's because I'm used to drinking heavier.
This probably will feel a bit light to you, I think, probably.
I think it probably will, but I thought I just wanted to put it in the mix. So I thought, we'll try something that maybe
you are a brave soul.
Oh God!
There we go. Oh.
As you
Yay!
can
I work on this table, so if you could fix that, please, that'd be awesome.
I don't believe you.
I try to work on this table.
As you can probably tell, we've opened the beer.
Yeah. You don't have to actually physically wipe it up with you.
Fine. I can sort that.
Yeah, your lovely chunky knit.
Oh, I've got foam on my fingers.
Oh dear. Oh, I've got foam on my fingers.
The aroma from the foam. The foam
aroma in my nose.
The aroma. Anyway.
This is rude. I'm pouring myself first.
Don't worry about it. So I think at this point in the podcast, because this is like, it feels like a really nice, slow meander through a podcast. I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
Don't know if the listeners are or not. Don't care.
Sodom.
Fuck you guys. But I also do want to kind of like think about drinking and gaming.
Yeah.
So just this has just come to me in my head and things. Like, do you think that they should be exclusive, belong together? Like, I always find that I really enjoy. I mean, I'm not trying to make this about me. I know I've asked you guys a little bit about your sort of drinking backstory. I certainly am a guzzler. I guzzle alcohol. That's what I do. I just like doing it. I enjoy being drunk.
I've always.
Thought
This sounds. No. I quite like the way you do it because the thing.
Dad's funny monkey.
I like the cut of his jib.
The thing with Chris is, right, let's say you're going on a night out, right? Mm-hmm. Chris is there. He is 100% there. And I like that.
If anyone's going to lead you astray that night.
I don't mean to suggest that he drinks to excess or anything like that. I just think that you know that if Chris says, we're going to have a drink, he means it. He's not going to, it's not going to be like, oh no, I don't fancy it a bit more. It's like, Chris is on it.
Yeah. There's not... So, I'm going to sound like I'm speaking out of two sides of my mouth here, but like, whilst I was sort of like, before the love freak, I love just sort of spending time with it and stuff, I do. But I also think there's definitely time for, let's smash a few pints. But at the same time, I totally respect that they have to taste good. Yeah. I certainly respect that more nowadays than I probably did do when I was younger. But even then, same as you guys, cider, sort of like, I used to drink cider. I never drank lager. I occasionally would drink something like John Smith's, I think, and stuff like that, but I couldn't really drink that to excess. I've never been a spirits person because of the fact that I do guzzle alcohol. Yeah. And like yourself, Rich, like I've had previous periods. I've had periods. That was a bad drinking session. I've had previous times where, I remember a New Year where my good friend Adam, who also like would probably, I guess, maybe admit to being a bit of a beer guzzler, where we drank like a whole bottle of like Sailor Jerry's to ourselves in like about 10 minutes and like went out, and it just, and that's just never really sat well with me. Whereas I feel like I can drink quite a bit of good flavoured beer, and get away with it enough. But I just think that I like being merry. There will be points where you get a little bit too far on that, but at the same time, I don't like to do that as much anymore, really. But I do like to have a few drinks. Like when I'm watching the American football on a Sunday or something, I'll have maybe like 3 or 4 sort of stubby cans or something like that, just to have that sort of, a bit of like a nice sort of beer and stuff. And you're not going out anywhere, but you're kind of like happy in your own company sort of thing. I don't mind doing that.
It's a very fine art.
I can tell by the way you're squinting and thinking about it that it is a careful art. You're like,
it's like I'm so careful these days not to go too far because I just know that it's gonna knock me for 6 the next day.
So I'll swing that back to the initial sort of idea of the conversation then. So drinking and gaming.
Yeah.
Is that something that you condone? You think it's a good thing? You think that better gamer, worse gamer, better game. The classic old I'm really good at pool after 2 pints or whatever kind of thing. Like as in, I'm definitely a worse gamer after drinking. Like as in, I think I'm having fun, but at the same time, I'm not very well coordinated in terms of video gaming. Certainly after a drink. I'm thinking about when you go to arcade club and you can have a pint and stuff. I like to have a pint when I'm there, but like sort of maybe like 1 or 2. Whereas if I have 4, I'm terrible at whatever I'm doing. It's hard enough as it is.
I'd agree. I think
I think unfortunately, I'm definitely that kind of person that will always swear blind they're not very competitive, but is ultra fucking competitive, like in everything, right? And so like nowadays, and the reason I'm talking so slowly is that I am thinking this through as I'm talking, and I think I'm having a bit of a breakthrough. So I think where in the past, say when I was at uni, right, it would have been like, drinking whatever, playing whatever, everything's great, everything's fine. Nowadays, I think that I genuinely think this. I think if I was gonna
needs to be cold.
Like if I was gonna play something and play to win, I would do it sober, and I would deliberately do it sober. But like, unfortunately, I'm the kind of person that would make sure to do it sober. Like, if I was going to arcade club and I thought I was going to have to play someone on Street Fighter, I wouldn't drink.
Okay.
Like, genuinely, I am that competitive, I think.
I'm not good enough at games to be worried about that.
But that's the thing. And like, whereas when I was at uni, like, I wouldn't think twice about like, having a few cans and then sitting on Call of Duty for half a night or whatever. But yeah, nowadays, if I was doing that and I wanted to stand a chance, I wouldn't drink. Don't get me wrong. Like, I will quite happily have a beer while I'm playing something nowadays. Yeah. But if I'm in it to win it, I'm doing it sober.
That's fair enough. So speaking of which, this podcast will be released about 4 or 5 days after what I'm about to announce. But we are going to do our second. We've done. Hooray! Wait. We've done our second. I guess retro gaming night we were calling it, weren't we? This time round at Horsworth Brewery. So last Wednesday, and nobody died. No, wait, that's probably cursing it. Anyway. This podcast was recorded before that.
At time of recording.
Was
safe.
But yeah, and hopefully, and that's I guess we're going to be doing, hopefully attracting people to have a beer at the local brewery whilst they're having a gaming.
Yes, I'm not going to be in it to win it.
No.
I'm in it for fun.
Yeah. So this isn't sitting well with you, Aaron. No. And I think a problem is, I'm not to criticise you here, but definitely better cold. I don't know if it's meant to be served cold, but I've served it cold when I've had it before and it was better.
Possibly. I mean, my review on this would be it's a bit like drinking wet cat fur.
I've got a cat.
I know, we could try that out.
We can.
She gave The Lion King 9 out of 10, so you're welcome to soak the cat.
My first impression, I think we may have done it the wrong way round because the quad obviously hits with flavour straight.
Have you got better beers coming? Or worse beers? Oh, that's okay then. It's fine.
Okay, so one of which is better.
So then you need to give the next one needs to be bad, and then the final one needs to be the good beer.
So
I think probably.
So it's a bit watery when you first drink it, right? And then
Rich, you're really staring at that can intently. What, is it offended you so much?
I'm just like, what is that flavour? It just tastes damp.
Malt.
It is quite malty.
It's probably just pub seat of pub.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Right. Well, no. That's fair enough. That's fine.
Couple of
Got
things. Like, it's what's weirdly impressive is the number of languages on the sort of ingredients bit.
Brewdog ship quite far, don't they?
I was going to say they're very it's clearly popular. Meant to go far and wide, which makes me wonder. Like, say I don't know. I think some of that might be Japanese. Like, if you're in Japan, can you get much stout?
Yeah.
You can actually. They do because the Japanese beers at the micropub. They do a sweet stout in that.
But there's that though, and there's like draft Guinness, you know, that sort of thing.
I was sorry, I just want to say, just while we were on the stout situation, just that the foreign import, the Nigerian Guinness. I think I've mentioned it before. I think you can only really get in Tesco in this country.
Yeah.
If you can get that anywhere, if you want to have the quintessential Guinness experience, and it's a 660ml bottle, that is, I think you genuinely would like that. That has got more flavour to it. It's definitely.
Is it? What, Nigeria?
So it's brewed in Nigeria, yeah.
Right.
And it definitely has like a cocoa bean flavour
right.
to it. It's really good. And it's like 7%. So it's got that strength that you'd like. So if you came back to the stouts, I think Sainsbury's maybe do it as well, and it's quite reasonable for a big bottle. You know, I'd recommend going there if you're going to try and get a flavoursome stout. So yeah. Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's all right. Because the only other thing I was going to say was, it just seems a bit characterless, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's.
And that's why I'll drink the rest of it.
Yeah,
I'll help
you're
you
more
out.
than welcome to.
I'll help you both out
fine.
here.
Like,
I think that.
but
Yeah.
well, I was just going to ask what would you give it on Untapped if you haven't already?
That's going to be a 2.5, is it?
Yeah, I think I'm looking in twos.
Would it even be 2.5?
2, 2, 5, 2,
All
2,
right,
2,
just,
2,
You know, but if it's out of 5, 2.5 would be average, right?
You know, Brewdog could crush us with one fell swoop, right?
Yeah,
They're more than welcome to.
could,
Like,
and
Horseford Brewery
at
are
least they'd
like,
be
this
listening.
is good for us.
they have some nice beers. They do have some nice beers, and I can see what the appeal of this might be. It's not for me. It's too.
I do think I enjoy it more than Guinness, but
Yeah, I think I enjoy it more than Guinness, but like even still, it's just I mean, the arcade one that we had though from Brewdog,
arcade made,
That was dry hops,
was
wasn't
really
it?
good.
Yeah,
I
dry hops.
I like
the
dry
hops,
hop
yeah.
beers.
They've got a few
But-
more new ones out at the moment as well. They've got like one, like a coffee grind one. If you can source
you
that in a
had that
pink can.
downstairs,
Have you?
Yeah. But like it's, I think if anything, knowing that they can do that,
Yeah,
makes
exactly.
this more disappointing.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. Cool. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more gaming then. I want to talk about in this podcast something else that happened in 2020 that, apart from the experience that we had in the back garden, which is now, you know, seeming like nirvana to me, was that me and Aaron both purchased at the time, an Oculus Quest 2.
Yes.
And now called a Meta Quest.
Yeah.
You know, because Facebook and Meta are all done the metaverse sort of situation, but it is owned by Facebook, and I think it was September of that year that certainly I purchased one. I think you were about maybe a month after or something, the fall of that year, weren't you?
Yeah.
And you know, and I kind of wanted to just having you on the podcast, just talk a little bit about owning a VR system in your home, especially with the announcement that the Meta Quest 3 is going to be available to purchase in, I think it's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's like going to cost about £600.
Wow.
It does seem to have quite a lot of advancements compared to the Meta Quest 2, but from a lot of the previews I'm seeing is that are they worth paying £400 more? Because a lot of it is graphically and visually, but in terms of what's available to you game-wise and stuff, a lot of previews are sort of saying, would you maybe better sticking with the Meta Quest 2? I have sold my Meta Quest 2 to purchase a Switch. I don't want to say I regret that. I don't regret having a Switch and I don't regret doing that, but I would like to have a Meta Quest back in my house for free. but I do miss my Meta Quest 2.
You can come and play at my house.
Yeah, I can. I can. That's a lovely invite, Aaron. Thank you. And maybe I will. But yeah, like, as in, so let's talk a little bit about the Meta Quest 2. And I want to get your thoughts and feelings on it. I want to arbitrary number out of you at the end of it as well. And I've got a little list of things that I think are good about it, bad about it. But let's go from the notes of notes.
I have notes, which will surprise no one.
No,
but you know, let's all not be surprised and be, you know, happy with that.
I'm totally unsurprised by this.
I have made notes on various aspects of having a VR, owning a VR that I would like.
I want. That's exactly what I want. So please hit us with the horn, Tony.
Aspect 1. Okay, you might think having a VR would be an isolating kind of thing because it's you're in your own little world.
Yep.
But actually, my view is it isn't, because actually people can sit around and watch you. They get a bit of a giggle, don't they, from watching you playing various games on the VR and looking a bit silly. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it necessarily is isolating. And, you've got some games on there like the bomb game, which I really enjoyed, that I can't remember.
Keep talking and nobody explodes.
Yeah, that one, yeah. Where you can
this is why you're here, Rich.
Thanks. That's what I do.
And then you've got, the health exercise, not for me because I'm very lazy, but
theoretically,
the potential health ramifications.
It makes you move, doesn't it? It makes you get up and move.
Yeah, that's a great shout.
There's a great little thing there about exercising and being a bit active. If you're someone, now I don't want to be stereotyping too much, but there is a stereotype of a gamer who might not leave their sofa all that much.
We've all seen that South Park episode.
And if you've got a VR, maybe it's just encouraging you maybe to get a bit more active, because there's a lot of sport and stuff on it, isn't there? So.
Yeah, so I'll kind of chip in. I think it'll work well if I kind of just jump in some of your points at the same time and stuff. So some of the games that I've played that I've really enjoyed, that are probably the better experiences on the MetaQuest, for example, or VR in general. Super Hot. Super Hot VR. You can get Super Hot on a general console, but there's no.
Can you?
Yeah. And exactly. You're asking that question because you're like, well, what's the point? What's the point? It's definitely a better experience playing it in VR, absolutely. And you being the person that actually physically moves while the bullets are slowing down.
And feeling so cool. That's
you do, exactly.
Oh my god, I just
feel like a fucking badass, don't you? Yeah.
I just caught a pistol in midair.
So cool.
Did this? You can't see what I'm
brilliant.
doing. I'm crossing my arms and
shooting. That's the most gangster thing I've ever seen you do. So and Audio Trip is another game that I had where you basically the music. So it's like just a general dance studio sort of thing, but you go along it's almost like you're on a monorail. Like you're not moving anywhere forward, but the game flows past you. But then you have to hit certain movements while the music's going on to the rhythm and stuff, and that really makes you sweat. That is it's a proper workout. But I spectacularly got into that. That is in for like sort of maybe and during the second lockdown, for example, that was my workout, and I loved it. And the problem was there wasn't enough music. That is there was just like 3 or 4 songs that I really enjoyed, and that were the ones I loved. But the two of the best physical games, and they were both great, but two of the best physical games over and above that are the boxing one. What's that called? The Thrill of the Fight. It's called. Cost me about £6. That is an exceptional physical game that feels realistic enough that you're in a box. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like you're in a boxing ring, and whilst you're not getting punched in the face, that is in the movements you have to do with your head and your hands. Like, is what I could imagine. I guess most basic boxing actions would be when you first learn to box, and you can really go at it if you want to. And I found the game easier actually if you were just jabbing away really quickly, as in to defeat your opponent. And it was almost that was another really big workout thing. But the best experience I had was the climb. The actual
I remember you telling me about this. Yeah.
The physical climbing game. There's the Climb 2, where that's the most immersed I've ever felt in the VR. You physically reach up with your arms and you swing and jump from different climbing aspects and different difficulties around the mountain you're climbing on. Don't get me wrong, the graphics aren't sensational, and you can tell you're in a game, but the actions you have with that and the workout you get from that and the burn you get in your shoulders from you just throwing your hands up around your living room. You know what I mean? Like, you look like an absolute mental case doing that, but it's just like, it's wonderful. It's brilliant. So there's some really great physical games. Like, I just wanted to, I guess, exercise that point. That you were making there about, it's good. I think it is good to be able to get up and get around. The flip side, the negative, and this is one of the reasons that I kind of probably, a big reason I couldn't really keep a hold of my MetaQuest was space.
Yeah.
I hit my hand on the mantelpiece on my fireplace too many times. So, yeah, it is. You do need a big room.
Yeah, it does depend what space you've got, doesn't it? Although there was obviously the advantage with the MetaQuest compared to perhaps earlier VR gaming systems where, you know, it had the walkthrough thing. You could select
pass through. Yeah,
the pass through I was actually amazed by it the first time. I was like, oh my god, that because previous to that I played a couple of VR systems and you were just blind.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't see what was going on in the room. The pass through was a great little thing.
Apparently, the MetaQuest 3 pass through is like the biggest advancement in so much that it's like that's the thing that you can now. You're effectively now fully visible now. Like whereas like, you know, it was obviously a bit granular with the MetaQuest 2. Apparently, the pass through is like sensational on the MetaQuest 3.
So the next thing I want on my list of things to mention, I think it's possibly one of the, you know, most memorable things about the Quest for me was, and the you know, the biggest benefits of it really is the social aspect of it. Because it was during lockdown, or was it just after lockdown?
It's just after the first lockdown, but certainly during the second lockdown, where it was, I mean, you know, the same sort of rules where we couldn't leave our house pretty much for like about a couple of months, I think it was, over the winter. We both had a Quest,
and you genuinely like keeping in touch with people through it, because we were on the rec room, weren't we? Quite a few times.
Yeah.
And it was kind of fun because you were meeting, you know, so on these things you can like meet people in the virtual world. And I think I even played with Nick, who I hardly ever see, my friend who lives down south. And we were, you know, it felt like us meeting up. And we did a couple, when we were playing Echo VR, which we'll probably mention again later.
Yeah.
But we, you know, it was just really nice. It was like social. It was like we were getting together. It's like, oh, hi, mate.
Yeah,
you know,
it really was, wasn't it? Yeah.
And you know, and Chris would be there in kind of like virtual form. It's like, hey, and you know, and there's not really, you know, if you're on a game, I suppose you can do. I've never really done it, but you can do that on a game where you've got a headset on and you're like talking. But it's the fact that you're kind of like physically in that space.
Yeah, there was definitely more to it.
It might have been a virtual body, but you were still kind of like, oh, hey, how you doing? What we're going to do? And we were off, you know, rec room, we're off like, let's go and play this game. Okay.
The medieval sword game.
Yeah, the medieval sword game. And it's like,
or golf, frisbee, frisbee golf,
And I'm thinking back to it now, I'm like, actually, I kind of missed doing that. I need to get playing it again. And
anyone back.
So, yeah. So there's that aspect to it. I don't know if you want to say anything about
I mean, you know, like, well, I guess you said touch on Echo VR, but I'm going to upset you now because I don't think you know this. Echo VR is now shut down. Yeah, I know. It was a free game and it was a free experience, but the business that now runs it has shut it down because they want to do other stuff. So there's no more servers.
I'm gutted now because I was like, I'm going to go back on that.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, they closed it down in August.
That is. Oh God!
But there'll be other experiences on there now. I think probably that'll be, you know, stuff that a similar sort of thing. So, but you both got the same look on your faces.
I feel sorry for Aaron.
Pure sadness.
I have no idea what you're talking about. But Aaron seems so crestfallen.
I wasn't saying. I wasn't trying to break your heart. Like, as in, I just
you have.
I was just like, I let you down gently. You know. I didn't want to. I just wanted to let you know.
So the thing about
I think I'm getting emotional.
is oh God.
Well, right, okay. I think it's a good time to take an emotional break, and we'll come back, talk a little bit more VR, and try another couple of beers, maybe. So we'll catch you in a minute. Hey, we're back. after much deliberating, I think Aaron went to cry in another room for a while after the Brewdog and the Echo VR bombshell that had dropped upon him.
Like
it felt so realistic when you're in that VR room. The frisbee coming at your head. So, you got any more takes on the world of VR, having it in your house and
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
I had one job.
Okay. Right.
You told me to talk about VR. So.
You queued me up. Oh, God. Right, okay. So smooth. Just like this third beer we're about to try. We all voted for one more beer, and Aaron's brought another great one. Dark and Wild 2023 edition.
So
Decadent.
Dark and Wild is the kind of beer festival type thing that Northern Monk do in their tap house, and they do dark beers and they do sour beers, which I think is the wild beer.
Oh, that is dark. Wow.
Very dark. Wow.
It's wild.
What is this? Do you want to read out what it is, Chris?
It is a pecan maple coffee chocolate pastry stout. And if you ever wanted any of those things inside you, as I always do, this sounds like it's probably for you. 8.4%.
As opposed to eels.
Eels up inside you, stout up inside you.
8.4, did you say? So,
I think so. I'll just double check that.
It is dark.
8.4.
It's got lush-looking foam.
Lush
foam.
Lush foam.
So the other thing, another thing on
dear
my
God.
list is that.
That's so good.
It's definitely better than Northern Monk.
You mean the Brewdog?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
We're back on track. That is wonderful. Wow. A great flavour to that beer.
You've got a lot of flavour. You've got a lot going on.
I was just remarking to Rich in the break that this podcast has been a bit of a glacial sort of it has been overindulgent, but I'm really happy about it. That we've had a great tasting session, and it's been really nice to enjoy these things together.
I love tasting beer. It's what's not to like.
Yeah, exactly.
There's chat. There's a slow kind of appreciation of liquid.
It is important to appreciate liquid.
Dear God. Meta Quest. So we've jumped from the fast pace of the previous podcast with the 5-minute limits to as in appreciations of liquids flowing down us.
So the next aspect, which I wish to talk about, is the educational aspect. Well, not so much education, but eye-opening, quite literally.
Yeah.
That sounds terrifying.
Well, so you can do things. So I went on a little VR visit to, I think it was Iraq.
Yeah.
And the war-torn Iraq.
Yeah.
And the guy
I remember
showed
it now.
around his house.
Yeah.
And after the war and whatnot, and he's taught you through various aspects of his daily life. But because you're on VR, you can sort of see it all. It feels very much like you're there.
Yeah.
And there were lots of these things. That was just one.
There was a 9/11 documentary.
The 9/11 documentary.
And that was sensational. That is it put you in, I guess, the ground zero, and then it showed you the buildings built back up. It was like, it was insane, and it showed you the visuals of things happening on the day and the debris being around you. You'll never get that anywhere else, unless you were there, which heaven forbid you wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it's such an important cultural moment to have that in your own living room. It's madness, absolute madness.
The thing about the VR that always, I was always impressed by from the start is the scale of it, because it does fool your brain. Like before you put it on, you think, my brain, it's going to look good, but my brain's not going to be fooled by this kind of thing.
Mm.
And you go in, and it is. Your brain is totally fooled, and the sense of scale you get, the sense of the fact that you're in a really, if you're in a really big space, and it's a bit of when you first start wearing, it's like a wow moment, really. So I played before I even had mine. I went and played Skyrim on James's, and there was this bit where I went into this cavern, and there was this giant ball of magic kind of, in the air. And I was like, it's massive. Like, I'm looking up, and it's like massive.
Mm.
And how is my brain understanding that I'm in this massive cavern when clearly I'm not?
Yeah.
And it is just incredible. And then you go into these like video ones, and they'll presumably only be better on the Meta Quest 3 when that comes out. And, there's this guy standing there talking to you. And you're like, and there's one, it was a really weird one when I went on, where you just went in, you were in Japan, I think, and this guy took you around some clubs. Like, it was like nightlife in Japan. And it was like, this is so weird. I'm just like, I'm in a club in Japan, and, there's people dancing around me, and your head is just bamboozled by it. It's mad. But you can have these kind of, that wasn't educational really, but the Iraq one was,
But just to further that point, even still images, like as in you can stand on top of Mount Everest, and have a 360-degree image. You can go and stand on Mars beside the Mars rover, and have a 360-degree image, and it's just like it's crazy. It is crazy, and it's not perfect. There's some cuts across those images, for example, and stuff. And I remember I remember you enjoyed it, Aaron, but I didn't enjoy it as much. The mission ISS where you're on, the space station. That I was a bit like that's a bit glib, but but you were still there. The imagery, and the way you had to like move your controllers is how you kind of like, I guess, accelerated across. You push yourself against the wall using gravity to move across the ISS and stuff, and there was a few things like that were just like very. I mean, I didn't enjoy that as much, like I said, as you did, but impressive educational tools that you just won't get anywhere else. You can look at a photo on your phone and go, well, there's Mount Everest, but that you can't. To stand on top of it is something else.
And I think it will. There was a period where they did VR. Years and years and years ago, and it didn't really succeed, did it? And now this is the second wave of it, isn't it, almost?
Yeah, because there was that period where you'd have like headsets you could slot your phone into and stuff like that, and that was about as good as it got.
And I think it is kind of growing now. I think it's going to continue to grow, and the technology will grow, and it'll just be, and I think one thing that it does need the problem with the Meta Quest and all the ones I've really worn is they still feel quite clunky on your face, and so you kind of get that sense you're not really in these places because you're feeling this thing on your head. And I think once they get, so Apple's doing some kind of glasses type thing, but I think there will be a point.
Aren't they?
Yeah, they are. But there will be a point when it's a bit more seamless. It's just a pair of glasses or whatever in front of your eyes, and you won't feel that thing on your head. And at that point, it'll be something else really.
I don't think that'll get any better with the Meta Quest 3 because I remember reading it's like 5 grams heavier than the Quest 2, and you do feel it. Like you need the Elite strap. When I was talking about audio trick before, and the thrill of the fight, and I was like, oh, you get hot and sweaty. You really do. You need the extra sort of protection because the Quest 2 shipped with like a foam sort of thing that went around your face, and actually to stop itching and the sweat is soaking into it. You do need the rubber sort of protector you can get for it and stuff. So there are definitely some limitations in so much that whilst you're doing these amazing experiences, you're still feeling it on your face.
But games wise, I thought I might just mention a couple of games.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I've got a couple more to mention as well.
So one of the first ones I played on there was this kind of Darth Vader game, which was really short.
The Vader Immortal.
Yeah. That was so good. I was genuinely scared when I got captured. So you start. Well, I won't spoil it too much, but you get captured by the Imperials basically, and then you're in detention. You're being detained in a kind of brig, I guess, or something, and then Vader comes along, and God, he's scary.
It's quite tall, isn't he?
Like, he's so big, and he, he can crush you with like one. And genuinely, it was like, oh God, this is scary. And then you kind of escape, and it's a really good game, actually.
Yeah, the only thing, so it's in 3 parts, and I think at the time it's probably a lot cheaper now, but at the time I think it cost about £20 for all 3 parts, and like you said, it was quite a short experience. I think the whole thing was about 3 hours long, maybe, which actually, I mean, I remember reviewing, Turnip Boy, and that was an hour and a half, and I was like, this is the best game ever, and I was in it. But it felt a bit more like a Star Wars experience of spend 2.5 hours with Darth Vader kind of thing.
An audience with
very much.
But the mechanics of it, using the Force and stuff, and being in those battles, was really good.
It was.
So there was like, you could, throw your lightsaber, you could do all the things that Jedis could do.
And there was a little part of it which was like the Jedi training, wasn't it? So and that was almost like, that was like the little side sort of story or the little side game. But actually, that was probably the most fun for me almost. That is in like where it's like you have to defend yourself against waves of robots or Imperial troopers, and you could use the Force to kill them, or you could throw your saber and stuff, and that was cool.
So that was one I wanted to mention. And then there was a space combat one, actually funny enough, called End Space, that I really quite liked. You felt like you were sitting in a ship, and you could kind of look back at your ship that you're in. And then there was a fantasy kind of Wizards one, which I hadn't been on for a while. I think they probably added.
Is that Elixir, is it called?
Yeah. And that was quite good because you did spells by doing motions with your hands. Different motions equated to different casting different spells. It was kind of fun. And then Star Trek Bridge Crew. Again, what you were saying before about being amazed by the kind of scale. What were you saying? You were saying something about like being amazed by the sort of the scenery and stuff. And I was like, the game itself, Bridge Crew, is good.
Oh, you mean the trappings in terms of what I was talking about?
Yeah, but the trappings are almost like the trappings are like almost like just as good. Like when you first go into the game, you go into a little shuttle and it kind of takes you around the Enterprise D, and you're looking out the window of the shuttle and you're seeing the Enterprise D next to you at the full scale, the size of it, that it would really be or whatever it is. And I spent one time, I just literally went on the whole. So it's almost like a menu section where you're in this shuttle, but I literally went on the whole journey around it, which was however long it was. It was like 10 minutes because I was just like looking out the window. I was looking out the window, and there's a space station. There's a few other spaceships around as well. And you just, it's really good. You just feel kind of you're in there, and then you get to a big bridge and commanding a starship, one of the starships or whatever, and that feels really real as well. And when when the ship's moving and stuff, and then I was going to mention Super Hot, but you already mentioned that. Hyperdash we played.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was on rails, wasn't it? It was like an FPS shooter on rails, wasn't it?
Good.
So, it was fun. Yeah,
I liked that. It was good. All in all, because you said you wanted me to rate it.
Yeah. Out of 10. Don't break the system.
I think the experience as a whole, 8.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Fair enough.
I like it that there are places where it can improve. It's not, it sort of semi fools your brain for a bit, but it needs to advance before it. You're fully immersed.
It's still a little bit arcadey, isn't it? That is in the graphically, the MetaQuest 2 does struggle to take you away from the actual world, like in the games. Certainly. I had a couple more to add on, like Moss. Moss is a really cool game where you control control puzzle pieces around a maze for a little mouse to be able to go around. This mouse is like he's like a little sort of I don't know, like a Zelda. There's a Link from Zelda, even like, and you kind of like you affect things that you'll press a button over here and it'll set off a flamethrower or whatever and stuff, and like you'll twist this wheel and that'll then open a gate for him over here. It's a really cool sort of like concept of that classic a mouse escaping a maze situation to get the cheese, and you're affecting it. That's really cool. And then last couple of bits was that we played table tennis together.
That was nice.
in an action. It's like, so it's more of a simulator than it is an actual game. And all the movements you make are exactly what you make with a paddle when you're playing
like
table tennis.
Spin on it and stuff.
And that was stunning. That was really cool. And I know it's easy to say, but you felt like you never had to play an actual game of table tennis ever again. You could just do it in the meta quest, and it was completely serviceable enough to say you are playing table tennis.
And as it advances,
don't get better.
Like I agree. There were some things like that where you're like, well, I've done that now.
Yeah.
Like the Everest thing. I mean, obviously, I'm never going to really go to Everest, but being able to go to the top, you're like, well, I've kind of seen
tick.
Anyway,
I've kind of seen what it's like.
And the last couple of things for me were, I guess, a positive and a negative. I'll start off with the negative. I'd like to finish on a positive. The memory, initially, when we got the first one, we got the 64 gigabyte one, didn't we? It shipped at £300. But now you can get a 256 gigabyte one, MetaQuest 2, for the same price. You could pick up a 64 gigabyte MetaQuest for about, and I've been tracking the last couple of days, just to sort of have a look at them for the podcast and stuff. And just for the podcast, because I genuinely, I do want one. I can't afford it. I can't, not right now. Anyway, but you can get one for £160 on eBay. That in really good condition, with all the bits, and it'd be very easy for me personally to do that because I've still got all my games in my library on my MetaQuest app, so actually they wouldn't cost me a penny. That isn't, so actually it would just be pick it up, go again. And you can very easily upload them and get rid of them off your memory. So whilst it's like a bit of a complaint that you'd have to do that for a 64 gig one, it's probably, if you do want to try a VR in your own house, definitely recommend maybe spend £150, £160 and getting a good version off eBay, and maybe getting one that you can get those games on. But then the positive I wanted to sort of say was having an extra multimedia screen in your house. Sky Worlds it's limited in what you can do, but if you have a Sky account, you can watch Sky Sports on there.
I saw this the other day on there because I was having a look at the app, and I wasn't sure that's what it was.
Yes,
that is what it is.
Yeah, so you can. So in my house, my parents had Sky, and I would pay for them to have Sky Go. It was like £5 a month, and as part of that, as part of a premium Sky member, which is just a normal Sky member that you just sign into whatever Sky Rewards or whatever they have, you get to watch Sky Sports, and in a screen as big as, say, a whole wall would be in your house, comparatively. You got, so that isn't, whilst someone else is using the television in my house, or someone else is whatever, using a games console, that drink has really gone. The games console, like on the television, like I could be sat there watching Sky Television, watching a football match, watching an American football match in my own little room, which sounds really insular, but fine well, you're sat there beside someone on the couch, you can talk to each other, it's not a problem, but it's just there, and you can just tap on the side of it and get the pass through and say, yeah, cool, yeah, fair enough, bye-bye. Back to what I was doing. And you get those, and you can watch Amazon Prime on there, you can watch Netflix on there in your own little cinema room, and that sounds really weird, but it's an option. It's an extra television in your house, which for £160, for example, nowadays, that is in, that you can get on there to get the games you can get and having that extra multimedia experience in your house, which, and it's HD, it looks really good. I think it's worth it. I do. And so I'd give it a 9 out of 10. I would, for the drawbacks you get, from the little drawbacks you get, the things that you add to your household from having that there.
That one system,
And the one thing I will put that on is that the other morning, I haven't had it in my house for like 6 months. And Oscar, my 6-year-old, said to me, he was like, "Oh, Daddy, can I wear your special goggles and go up the mountain again?" And I was like, I haven't got them. I was like, I haven't got them because we're playing Super Mario on the Switch. You know, that's what we've got now. But I was like, oh, dang it. Like, in 3 months' time, he'll ask me the same question because he's getting old enough for it now. And it's I know fine well that I'm just sort of saying to myself,
whip out the special goggles again.
No, exactly, yeah. So, yeah, but that's I'm really glad we touched on that. I really want to talk about the ultimate handheld experience in
Face held?
the face held, the face held experience in your house, especially with the Meta Quest 3 on the horizon. So, but yeah, it's been a really fun set of pods. So thanks for coming, Aaron. Really appreciate all your input.
I have enjoyed it muchly.
Good, wonderful. Good. I hope you're giving it a good rating out of 10. 10 out
of 10.
Cool. What's been the best beer that we've had tonight? Then, not to spend too much time. Last sentence we're going to say about it. Is it the Saint Vivian, or is it this? I really like this, the Dark and Wild Northern Monk.
I think it's still a Saint Vivian for me.
Saint Vivian for me. Like the Northern Monk one is good, but looking at it, it's like pecan, maple, coffee, and chocolate. I'm getting a lot of coffee. I'm not getting a lot of much of the rest of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but then my taste buds are a joke anyway. So
but I think I would agree. It's nice.
2 out of 10 for your taste buds.
It is nice, but I'm not getting all those flavours.
Yeah. I really like it, but I really like it as a coffee drink. Coffee stout rather than.
So what we're saying is sometimes too much is too much.
Too much is too much.
And on that bombshell, that's the end of the podcast. So thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.
Cheers.